So I probably could do like an introduction to this class forever, but eventually we got to get into the nuts and bolts of it. We actually start talking about things. But okay, world revolutions. Every continent, every country has had some type of revolution. In fact, like Egypt's had 2 or 3 or 4 of them. They're in midst of sort of revolutionary fervor. If you look at Aristotle's definition, which is the definition I'm going to go with, coup d'etats, leadership, change in leadership, and a change in constitution. Those are true revolutions. You could also have sort of the revolution just comes, a sort of consciousness, a revolutionary consciousness, which I can explain in several ways, but one way specifically you can see it in relationships among people with equal relationships, but I think a better way to understand it would just be sort of I feel like I'm evolving myself, and so whenever I come across something I do not understand or do not know, I work to understand it and overcome that ignorance. And I allow myself to be dumb and sort of ask questions and sort of, read the material until eventually I come to some overall understanding and therefore better, a better understanding overall of what's going on. So I feel like that's me allowing myself to grow and become smarter. I think it's smarter, but it also, I feel, I feel more mature, but I feel like I'm evolving, okay? I feel like that's an evolution. And so I think that's a revolutionary type of thought. That's a revolution. I don't hear anybody else saying that. I've actually heard, there's a lot of, I don't know, some poet, Emerson, he said the next best thing of being the person who says the original idea is the first person who repeats it or tells them, no. So if the first time you heard an original thought was by someone who else had heard it before, that doesn't take away from it. And this all mattered because of great revolutionary thoughts. And so I thought of another revolutionary thought. Whatever, just about how the people being the first people to say it. There's one guy that says that when you read, there's a faculty in your head that you turn off, and then you can just kind of scan, and then you're reading the thing, but you're not actually having to say every word out loud, and then that equips you to read so much faster. And it does. And I thought that was revolutionary too. Having a smartphone, I thought was revolutionary. Okay, so revolution, right? Revolutions are good. We're seeing basically historically those phenomenon that is called revolution, even though they're bloody, horrible debacles. The French Revolution was an absolute mess afterwards, right? And Napoleon was able to come out of the chaos and basically destroyed the revolutionary people's fervor and become an empire, right? A dictator, a tyrannical empire, racist dictatorial empire. But the French Revolution, they had chopped off the king's head and Marie Antoinette, and so basically talk about like the clear cut between what's old school and what's new school, what's postmodern versus what's modern. Here are the leaders, now their heads are chopped off. Were you with the people that got the heads chopped off? Is that which side you were on? Then you were on the wrong side, because the revolution is here and they're here to stay, especially since they don't have these people speaking up for them. And they really were against Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. Louis XVI helped finance the American Revolution, and so was the Haitian. There was one of the presidents of Haiti was like a 12-year-old drummer boy. He got shot in Virginia or something. So Haiti and the French were helping America during our revolution, but when Haiti and France had their revolution, we backed off. We called ourselves neutral with France, and then with Haiti, we actually were financing and helping Napoleon out, and we weren't helping the Haitian people out. And that's just despicable and disgusting, because these 3 revolutions, they formed 3 completely different ideologies and identities. And so right now, you got Haiti, which is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and I wouldn't doubt that it has to do with a combination of their independence, but also the capitalistic sort of, the freeze out, or the kind of the cold shoulder, Napoleon just wanted to re-enslave the Haitian people just to make sure African people didn't know that they could rule themselves and rule their own republic. So he was trying to set African people back, black people back centuries. That's what his stated intention was. So Napoleon wasn't a good guy. He killed the revolution. People said that he was good because he spread the ideals of the revolution, and in a weird way maybe, but the Haitian Revolution I feel like is the closest true blue revolution, because that's the slaves taking over, killing their masters, and saying we run things now. And so, whereas the French Revolution had the bloodshed, right, that all the revolutions seem to have in common, and for some reason, because of the ideas behind the revolution, that is something that we as people seem to forgive in the long run. So wars and wars of occupation and imperialistic, sort of endeavors that are just kind of we don't care for those, but those times of upheaval that are called revolutions, we seem to get by and say that those periods are okay, which is fascinating. Okay, still, that's not the route we're going. We want leadership changes in leadership, get a new cabinet in there, or new constitutions. And we've had constitutional reform in Bolivia, which had land reform, and it had nationalizing of raw materials, the legalization of cocaine. So it has a lot of the similar tenets of what I would like to see happen in Kentucky. So Kentucky, I want to see a guaranteed income. In fact, I was thinking maybe we should even go after the way Switzerland is, or model ourselves after Switzerland, and just let the banks, they run roughshod anyways, right? Give them a safe haven so they'll be able to fund and finance all these hemp crops and all these different nationalizing coal and land reforms and graduated income ideas that's going to happen. So I think in Switzerland they got a graduated income, so everybody is guaranteed an income, and therefore you're guaranteed life. In America, right, in the richest country in the world, we should be, the Declaration says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is what they're supposed to protect, but they're not even protecting life. We got homeless people who starve on our streets. So if they could protect life with a guaranteed income, then maybe we could get our liberty, and then maybe we can get our pursuit to happiness. Land reform is actually an anti-communist measure, because if people actually have something to fight for, worth fighting for, then they will see the benefits of private ownership. So if private enterprise is the way to go, then land reform you should be totally down with, even if you don't like the redistribution part at the very beginning. But the land reform, the idea of it is that you break up the land that has not been used, the big haciendas, and you give it to people that would do something with the land. So you're turning it from unused, wasted land to land that could actually be used to create whatever, flowers, hemp, or sunflower seeds, or tomatoes, or flower, whatever, roses, whatever. You can raise anything that you want if people had their own land, that people would be encouraged to do it. Also, you want people to own their own land and their own house, because it gives them an economic incentive to go work, because they can save their stuff, so they would have the safety and security of having a safe spot to store the things that they're going to work for. If you're just renting, it's hard to make any improvements on the places where you're renting, because you're actually improving other people's stuff. So why would you want to improve other people's stuff? You don't. I mean, we clearly should have like a savings and loan program where you actually want people to get a house and to get land, but instead it's capitalistic dog eat dog. And so really anybody who tries to get a mortgage out here, you're on your own. And if you find a good company, if you find some good people, you could try to buy straight from the owner. Maybe they might treat you right, or maybe they'll hike up your interest rate to over 1,000, and then once you lose everything, the bankers will get a big check. Meanwhile, you're kicked out of your own house with your family, and you don't have any place to go. So the revolutions, okay? What revolutions are the best? The Mexican Revolution. What is the Mexican Revolution? I want to talk about the 1848 revolutions. I want to talk about some just nationalism in general. What is nationalism? I mean, we're all Americans here. But we're also Kentuckians, or Tennesseans, or we're Louisvillians, or we're UK fans, or we're masters, and we are part of the group service, whatever. We all have our own sort of groups and people that we all identify with that are the same, and that's all nationalism is whenever you say that I'm part of the Kentuckians, okay? I'm a member of the Kentuckians. That is an absolute true fact, okay? What have I done to become a Kentuckian? Nothing. I was born in Covington. I've been raised in, public schools, Kentucky public schools. So, I love myself, and I love where, I like the environment, right? the water and the trees and the nature aspect of Kentucky. So I like myself. I like the nature aspect. So I like a lot of things about it. But these are not things. It's not like so much I had to do something to become a Kentuckian. I had to pass a Kentucky test or a Kentucky oath, or I didn't have to make a Kentucky oath. I didn't have to do any of that. You know, I was just born on this land. But that's nationalism, okay? And so whenever Steve Brashear says we Kentuckians can get together, he's talking about everybody in the state. So he means something by that. And he means every citizen that's in the state. So he groups you in that group whether you want him to or not, if you live within the geographical boundaries that is Kentucky. So anyways, that's nationalism. The reason why I mentioned it, Malcolm X says that's the reason why Africa had revolted against their slave masters was through nationalism. When I look at Occupy, the only nationalism I really see is rainbow nationalism. So I think we just need to get on board with where we're going to be a mixture of lots of cultures and lots of peoples. And so it's going to be black, white, brown, you know, some blue people, right, out of eastern Kentucky. And really we just need to start identifying each other as, you know, one, and people and friends, and looking at cultures as a cool, neat, little extra interesting thing about each other. So we need a rainbow revolution. So that's sort of the you know, that's every CIA, all these, you know, springtime of nations, whatever, the Arab Spring, they always have the orange revolution or the yellow revolution or the purple revolution. Moldova, there's, you know, they all use all these different colors, but why not just put all the colors together and have a rainbow revolution? So the rainbow revolution seems, it's Jesse Jackson, it's we're all together in this, it's the banner for the homosexuals, but I think they need to relinquish it and or share it with the humanists, who we all are together, and so we all are different colors and come from a different place. And what is different about us is what makes us interesting, and so therefore we should value those differences instead of having ignorant bigotry against people that you don't even know about. So we're all one, we're all human, so I think we need to tap into this one energy. So that's the nationalism that I would talk about, but I'm also a German American or German Kentuckian nationalist, and a Kentucky nationalist. So German, American, and Kentuckian. So I like the German culture and what I bring with me with the German nationalism. I also am African too, so I like the African nationalism and the Bohemian and the Bavarian and the Prussian and Austrian. All these, I like talking about all these. So really I'm waking up the Czech people, I'm waking up the Austrians, I'm waking up the Bavarians, which is sort of the polka dancers, right? The hat and the polka dancers, those are the Bavarians. And then the Prussians are sort of the militant, Otto von Bismarck, probably Third Reich, fascism, totalitarianism. And we see things like that in America as well. Okay, good. Now, let's keep on going. So, change in leadership, change in constitution. How many times have we seen revolutions? According to Aristotle's definitions, how many times? We see it all the time, every 4 years in Kentucky, and then with the Constitution, we've seen it 4 or 5 times overall. So every 4 years, up until about 10 or 20 years ago, there was a rule in Kentucky that said you could only serve 1 term in a row. So if you want to run again, you would have to wait 4 more years and then come on in. And so I don't know what that actually does. It sort of diminishes your power, but then it also causes you to set things up that you can finish later on, but also, like, you know, keep the machinery that's, I don't know what it actually does. But every 4 years there was a change in leadership in Kentucky. So there was a, you know, a peaceful exchange of power that kept on happening for every 4 years. So that's a good thing, right? So every 4 years you're going to have a change in leadership in Kentucky. And so for every 4 years you can get a revolution. And so we can get revolutions at the ballot box. We can have many electoral revolutions. Okay, so that's good. That's great. Constitutional revolutions last for long times. 1891, you know, is when Kentucky wrote her revolution, or her constitution. It's been 120 years. America wrote hers in 1891, 1889, somewhere around there. So they've been around for, you know, I don't know, 200 so years, 230 something years. So once the Constitution has been written, then the rules, if they're written well enough, they tend to stick around. So Constitutional revolution is a much better, deeper, profounder revolution than a leadership, but a leadership one is a good one. Then you can get Constitution from leadership, and you can also get leadership out of constitutional revolution. So you can get them both, right? And we want to avoid coup d'états. We want to keep this tradition of the American people being able to pass power on to the next person without there being violence and bloodshed. That's a good thing. That was one thing that George Orwell talked about Great Britain. He was proud of that Great Britain was able to have these discourses amongst each other without it turning into violence. Instead, he said a lot of live stuff, but he says that it never turned violent. So therefore, that's a good thing, right? Occupy is just like the 1848 revolutions, and I'm going to get to that coming up here shortly.